What's different about you guys is that you actually take the time to listen to your clients. I love the work you do and how you do it. That's what one of our most recent restaurant clients had to say about us. This is why we love the work that we do, y'all. As restaurant owners and chefs, there is so much on your plate when it comes to operating a restaurant. People can't even imagine the level of work and commitment that it takes to do what you do. But on top of all of that, you've got to be a content creator. I think we all know by now that social media and the online world is here to stay. And it's really important to stay consistent in order to keep your guests engaged, to continue nurturing that relationship that you have with them, and to celebrate all the work that you're doing. If you're ready to show up with the authority that you know that you have, you want to show up authentically. Your dishes need to look amazing because they are amazing and everyone needs to know it. If it's time to take the next step, go to gingerandcarrot.com and schedule a discovery call. We need to work together.
All right. It becomes a cheese pull without, okay, well, why is there a cheese pull? Or how did this cheese pull come about? Or how can this dish from which the cheese pull comes, why is that? Why is the chef making that? Or is it pure just like that you're doing the cheese pull to get the page views, right? Or to get the likes? And cheese pulls are not in and of themselves bad, but if that becomes the objective, then you're actually, you talk about food porn, okay, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's objectifying men and women. Mm-hmm. Porn is objectifying men and women. I think food porn is objectifying the food.
Your boy Tabari.
We're the husband and wife duo, co-founders, creative director, videographers, photographers. Where at, Tabari?
Ginger and Carrot Productions.
Ginger and Carrot Productions. If you ain't heard about it, you just heard about it just now.
Just now. What we do is we create stunning videography and photography for chefs and restaurant owners.
That's right, y'all. So if food is your jam, guess what? It's our jam too. In this podcast, we are exploring how folks show up as their authentic selves in the work that they do. We're going deep, y'all. But we're having fun along the way. So if you're ready to laugh, if you're ready to cry, just a little bit, then keep listening. Welcome to the Sensitive Business Podcast, everybody. We're super excited to be chatting with Sam, the founder of Punk Foodie. This is definitely such a treat for us because I'm a big fan of pop-ups. It's been like such a personal mission and joy for me to find the places that you can't find on the internet. They tend to have the most innovative food. And here we have someone who is really dedicated to that mission as well. Sam, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here with y'all, and I love talking about pop-ups. So it's I've been looking forward to this all day.
Yay! What an excited guest.
So we can start with the wellness check.
Yeah. So how are you doing?
Yeah, no, it's all good. I mean, it's an absolute beautiful day here in Atlanta.
Yeah.
It's that weird time that it's a bit chilly in the morning, but by noon or so, it's just perfect. It's like room temperature weather. It's just like 72 outside, and it's sunny and deep dark blue sky, and the weather is. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm getting older, but it just plays such an important part of my mood. You look out the window and you see the blue sky, and it just makes you happy. So that's one of those days. So I'm quite happy.
Yeah. Totally
I
get
feel that so much. I think the first thing I do, somebody asked this on Facebook. They're like, what's the first thing you do in the morning? And at the time it was writing down like some thought exercises I had, but really the first thing I do is look outside immediately to see. And it almost determines how I feel, whether even I've learned to like when it's cloudy, because when it's cloudy, no one's outside and I get all the space to myself.
Yeah.
So I get excited about that too. But I'm like, how am I going to feel today? Like literally just look outside.
I do first. I think I splash some water on my face and I go for a walk with the dog. If I get up early enough, I just take her out, take care of her first, and then I come back and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm hungry now. Appetite is here. Let me start making breakfast and get ready for my day.
Yeah, I have this weird thing. I don't know if it's weird or unusual, but I don't know. I will kind of like be my dreams. Like I have certain unresolved questions or issues, especially like around the business. And, I just kind of like dream about them all night. And then you wake up and you've got, I can't say that my dreams solve all my problems, but you wake up with at least new ideas and new thoughts. And especially if you lie in bed for a few minutes and really start thinking, it's like, okay, the first thing I want to do when I get up is like, okay, I got to write all this down.
Yeah.
I got to like get this on paper. And of course, later sometimes I look at it, it's like, okay, that was just crazy. Silly talk. But sometimes there is something there. And that's sort of the hook to get me started on the work in the day. But then one of my problems is once I get started, then it's like, I can't stop. 4 hours later, the dog is beside me whining because I haven't taken him out. But I am looking out the window, looking at the weather. So in the morning to see how it's going to impact my day.
I have the same problem, and I'm really working hard on it. I'm really working hard on stopping something because I get this fear that if I stop right now, the flow is over and all my ideas will just go down the drain and I'll never be as creative as I am in this moment. Right. Even though every time I've done that, I come back even more refreshed. But like in the moment, I'm like, I can't. And Tabar usually has to peel me away.
Yeah, no, I have this thing like I like to have my to-do list, and so I like to get things off my to-do list. Right. And so even the ones that take, they're going to take me weeks and months, I still, it's like once I get started, it's like, okay, maybe I can get it off my to-do list. Right? And so you just push. And finally I have to say, okay, you know what? This is not one of those items that you're just going to, it's being persistently on the to-do list. And some things like I need to step away from it so that I can come back with a new perspective or see if I've gone down the wrong road. Because you can't, I guess some of the more things that require more thought and more creativity, you can't just knock that out in an hour. Right. You gotta, you need to let it percolate. You need to let it cook, if you will, and then circle back. But sometimes I get caught on those issues and I just can't get away. I can't stop until the dog. He's pretty good about stopping me.
That's his job, right?
That's very interesting because, like Lisa said, I see her do that a lot, and I find myself kind of on the other side where I find myself like, okay, cool. I need a quick break, and I'll come back to it. I do not mind at all taking breaks and coming back to a thing. And what I think about is, I spent a lot of my early 20s, and actually even earlier than that, because my dad was doing what the guys were outside were doing, was taking down trees, doing the chipper. And so like as soon as I could work, I was working, doing something, and I couldn't take the breaks when I wouldn't take the breaks the way I wanted to. And that kept going as I got into adulthood and went to the workforce and was at fast casual food service and at like retail. And I was never able to take those breaks that I want to. But now here in my own business, I make sure I take those. And my balance is finding, it's to not fall into the trap of I can only work when I'm inspired. So I just give myself like little breaks. Even if it's like, I'll take 15, 20 minutes, I'll play Skyrim for a second and I'll jump back into it. I try to give myself just little breaks in between that thinking. Because when I start to feel myself the tank kind of running low, I have to step away because then it starts to like other things have to fall with it, like my patience and my empathy and my grace are falling with it. And those things cannot, in a business and in a marriage, we cannot. Those things can't fall to the wayside.
Right.
So I have to take those breaks for that.
No, that's a lot of self-awareness. So, I have to like step back and stop sometimes to get that. Otherwise you get just so lost in it, what you're trying to do. So that's, I think that's
absolutely.
Good.
And the dog helps. The dog helps.
Yeah, exactly.
Our dog
like, she can go out the pee real quick and it's like,
she's really communicative and she has really like defined facial expressions. So it almost feels like a person's talking to you because she'll look at you with like the exact face expression of what she needs. Like if she's sad, she'll like literally frown. And then if she needs something, she'll look at you with like the utmost concern. And if she's happy, then she just licks you like uncomfortably. So it's always so easy to like predict what she needs because she'll just like come in and you can hear her little paws and it's like tink, 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 tink. And then she'll just sit and like almost like she's like tapping her foot like I'm ready to go outside.
My dog Ringo, he doesn't have as much expression. He'll just give you the stare. Just like, and you look away and you feel it and you look down again, same stare. I mean, he's just staring right at you. So, and then he'll start getting into doing little kind of, just kind of like just a little frustrated kind of little mini walks. And then they progress to being a little more getting the howl area. And then you have to say, okay, that's, if you start getting to the howls, it's like, it's almost getting cruel. It's like, he needs this, right? It's
like, this is your 30-second countdown before I fit in the house.
But I think it's just fortunate that she comes to us when she wants something. She's like, hey, something's got to happen. It's you or me. And I just think about it sometimes. I know everybody thinks about this when they have a dog, but it's like, it's so wild to have this like being in the house and we've never talked once.
Everybody's really stuck on that.
It's just so wild. I look at her sometimes and be like, you never said nothing. But we're communicating all the time. Like nonverbal cues and like how we move, and she'll move how I move when we're walking and whatnot. And she'll like, but it's like not one time have you said one word to me.
Yes.
It is a mind fuck.
Yeah.
So Sam, a question we like to ask all of our guests is, what do you fuck with?
Well, for me, it's from the intro we talked about it, it's really about food. I mean, broadly speaking, it's food. And that comes from, I spent about 20 years, over 20 years living in Asia, in Japan, and then most of the time in China. And after having grown up in the South, in the 70s and 80s, where there's not a lot of variety of food.
Yeah.
And when I got to China, and just in China, there's so many different types of Chinese food. And then we had a chance to travel throughout Southeast Asia and really around the world. And I just found that food could be really tasty.
That's real.
Yeah. And it could also, even more than that, there's like, there's history, there's culture, there's stories behind that, behind the food that you're eating. And it was that kind of tapping into kind of the culture behind the food and history that, got me excited. And so, you could say I'm a foodie, but that word's got some different connotations. And but I think for me, it's, I just love the food, and not only the food itself, but the stories behind it. And that's kind of what led me to pop-ups. When I moved to Atlanta about 6 years ago, I was, I kind of missed that rush of trying so many different types of food. and digging into the stories behind it. But then, at that time it was like, Atlanta Magazine was, it had Kamayan on the cover, and Eater and Atlanta and AJ Magazine and AJC were like writing about pop-ups, and I was like, wow, this is it. This is where I can get that rush. But then it's like, okay, where are these pop-ups? And I'm like, when are these pop-ups? And I was like, well, there's a few Instagram accounts that would mention, but then, Instagram, the algorithm, it doesn't always just like pop up. The information about pop-ups don't just pop up in your feed. And so then I realized, wow, there's actually a lot of pop-ups, and there are a lot of venues hosting pop-ups, but I can't keep up with them all. And that was kind of what started Punk Foodie. It's like just to solve my own curiosity and desire to get that rush of trying different kinds of foods, and food, again, which has stories behind it. Even if it's not, a country or a culture, they're personal stories with a chef of how and why they got into cooking and being a chef, or, doing what they do. And so it's like, I just got to find this stuff. I got to know where they all are. Right. I got to know. And so that was the idea. And we started publishing content and about the pop-ups, and we started building an audience and figure out that other people have the same challenge, the same interest. And so, yeah, I mean, that was, I kind of kicked off Punk Foodie, I guess, the Instagram account. It's been about 2.5 years or so. And, but that's where my passion is. That's kind of what I fuck with is pop-ups, and everything related to that. Eating in general, right? And
Yes.
I don't only eat at pop-ups, but you get I guess it's more independent restaurants that have similar kind of stories, because actually a lot of the hottest Atlanta restaurants actually trace their history to being pop-ups. But anyway, more broadly, it's independent restaurants where there's, they're good food, but also interesting stories. So yeah, fucking with the food, fucking with the pop-ups. That's what I do.
It's so interesting you brought up the topic of foodie, because I too kind of divorced myself from that label, and I just say to people, I'm obsessed with food. I'm enthusiastic about food. What comes up for you when you hear the word foodie? Because it felt right until it didn't. It's kind of like woke. Like woke just lost the meaning for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's well, this gets into a little bit of, I forget you told me the next section of things that you don't fuck with. And of course, this is it's very ironic that I start wrapping the word foodie when it's Punk Foodie is in the name, but hopefully the punk neutralizes some of the negative.
I think so.
But I think the word foodie is, I think it's the connotation or meaning of it. It's evolved with, I guess, the word influencers, or the concept of foodie influencers, and the food, especially the ones that will go to restaurants and say, hey, I'll feature on my Instagram account. But it's going to be, $1,000 or $5,000 for a post. And, for its pure exposure, and it's more about the business. Yeah. And this is not knocking foodie influencers. There are a lot of really good foodie influencers. Many of them good friends with, I know. It's not everybody. But there are extreme cases which have kind of sullied the name. And I think it's that kind of where it just becomes much more transactional as opposed to authentic. And I think that in its worst form, it ignores the story. Yeah, which is what I like. Right? It becomes all about the cheese pull. Right? It becomes a cheese pull without, okay, well, why is there a cheese pull, or how did this cheese pull come about, or how can this dish from which the cheese pull comes, why is that? Why is the chef making that? Or is it pure just like that you're doing the cheese pull to get the page views, right? Or to get the likes. And cheese pulls are not in and of themselves bad, but if that becomes the objective, then you're actually you talk about food porn, okay, right? Well, that's objectifying men and women. Porn is objectifying men and women. I think food porn is objectifying the food.
That might be the gem. That might be the gem, Tabari.
It's objectifying, and also objectifying the chef, right? Yeah. Objectifying the person who's enjoying the food, the genuine experience. It doesn't become genuine anymore. Just like there's not a lot of love on porn sets, right? So yeah, I think it's just to me, it's what we try to do and what we try to be and what we try to capture. It's all about authenticity. And it's not saying it have authenticity or authentic type of food. It's like, oh, this has got to be real or authentic Mexican or authentic Chinese. No, it's like authentic to the chef, right? It's authentic to who they are. And it's just like art, right? And this is where the punk aspect kind of comes in. Is punk, originally, in the late 70s, it was 3 chords and the truth, right? It's people just like, you don't have to have, it's not about the talent. It's not even about the song structure being traditional or anything like that. It's just about people have passion and they got to speak it out, right? They got to sing it out. They got to yell it out. And so I think that's kind of where the punk aspect comes in. It's not punk rock, but it's the punk aesthetic, and trying to get to authentic, real, raw, passionate. So yeah, that's the long-winded answer to why foodies. Why the word foodie.
This is the place for long-winded answers. Believe me. I was telling you earlier. Some episodes are like 2 hours long.
No, this is why my wife will raise her and it's like, "Are you done with the monologue? Can we speak now? Can I get a word in?" So, yeah.
Our favorite phrase is, "Thank you for attending my TED Talk."
It makes it a little more playful when we get on our soapbox sometimes in the house, and you're like,
yeah,
you're like.
But I love what you said, though, because first of all, every single part of this is gonna be. We're using it on our Instagram. Like your entire page is going to be this podcast. So I just want to let you know now, because that is so real. I love because I've never put it to words, but it is objectifying to the food. And we think about so much of how food gets wasted. And we think about like the ecosystem behind food, from the farm to distribution to like even what gets to be planted and grown and cultivated, and the politics behind that, which is a whole world. But then on the content side, that wastefulness is happening yet again. And restaurants are struggling with knowing how to market. And just like any other business, any other industry, it's so easy to get distracted by the trends. It's so easy to get distracted by, well, this is working for that person, instead of really being confident in what really works for them. Like there's a restaurant here in LA, Black-owned restaurant. I think they're called Poppy and Rose. And they're always talking about politics. And like they do brunch and they do like fried chicken, waffles, like eggs Benedict, but then they'll be like, these are the topics you can talk about over pancakes today. And they'll go over like the major topics that's happening politically right now. And they're really good about using their platform to bring the food and the politic conversation together. I've never seen anything like that. And I was like, yes, even something like that. It's like, where they stand, where their values are, what kind of people they are. And they're so forthcoming with that. And I'm like, whatever that looks like, I just wish that I would see that more. I wish that people were more, you don't have to be vulnerable. It's like, you don't have to post pictures of your kids. Like, they shouldn't even be on the internet, but like,
Yeah.
just take a stand for something. You know what I mean?
Well, especially I think where food is part of the politics, or food, or it's playing a role in that, or playing a role in the culture, or cultural issues, social issues, economic issues. I mean, I think there's a term that, I've come to appreciate, that I think articulates some of when I say stories, and it's foodways, right? And foodways, in social science is looking at the cultural, social, economic practices relating to food, right? So, when I see, like, there's a pop-up here called Ganji, and they're Korean, founded by 2 Korean Americans, born in Korea but raised in Georgia, right? And the food they make, it's just this amazing. It's not even just only Korean. Again, I hate the word fusion, but bringing together elements of Korean food and American food and or Southern food. So they do this, pimento kimchi, right? So instead of pimentos, it's got kimchi in it, right? And if you just look at the face of that, it's like, okay, well, that's just, it could be very, they're just trying to be commercial. It's like, okay, well, let's bring these 2 elements of the South and bringing Korean together, and it would play well on Instagram, or create buzz. But these the folks behind Ganji, I mean, they live that. I mean, they grew up Southern. I mean,
Right.
They grew up in Atlanta. They grew up eating pimento cheese, and they grew up eating kimchi, right?
Right.
So that's, to me, that's authentic, right? And then from the foodways perspective, I mean, that's representative of, the relatively huge Korean population that is in Atlanta. And how is that changing the way that people in Atlanta eat? And then how is it changing the way that the Koreans that came to Atlanta, being here in the South, how does it change the way they eat? That's foodways, right? And the fact up and down Buford Highway in Atlanta, I mean, that is literally a foodway. And there's so many stories about immigrants, folks coming here, starting a new life and integrating ways of life, including food, into what they do, and vice versa. And so it's like, it's all of that. That's just incredibly, fascinating. And I think that, so you go back to your topic, issue about politics, or the restaurant in LA that talks about politics. Yeah. I mean, it could fit perfectly with food. I mean, food, it doesn't have to be separate, right? And you have to, of course, you understand the potential of alienating audiences and all that kind of stuff, but it can come from a very genuine place. And it can be very relevant to the story of the food that is on that plate, whether it's a personal story or whether, it's political, or the way, the independent farms versus big food farms and all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's lots of stories to be told around food. And that's what, so that's why it's more than just a cheese pull, right? Because there's so much more to say, right? Or that can be said, but that's part of the storytelling angle. You just got to figure out what is the story you want to tell, right? Why is this important to you? And so that's, anyway, that's what we're always trying to dig, behind the food.
What it makes me think about is, like, with the politics aspect, with the food waste thing and everything we we're just talking about just now, it makes you think about why the food, like the story behind things that we buy or that we consume, or that is so important now. And I think that certain corporations, certain businesses have kind of in the past co-opted the story to kind of, or taking things it's like corporations from I think it's from June to the end of June are all about rainbows and everything. As soon as the next month hits, they're back on their other back on their other shit. Yeah. And there is that desire, there's that pull for people to have a genuine connection with what we what we like, again, what we buy, what we eat, and it creates the adverse, not adverse, but the effect of that is that there's more conscientious, more conscious consumers and more buyers. Because while there are people who just, go to Walmart and just grab whatever, a lot of people, especially the younger generations, are asking more questions and demanding more of certain corporations. And I was looking at some statistics recently about how many there are in the country. Most, it's just how many things that come up. And I think that's all kind of the same thing as far as like the pop-ups coming up, people who are tired of seeing fusion, people who are tired of seeing someone else celebrate or appropriate their culture. And now as like the people who came here, their children are growing up and they're kind of reaching adulthood and they're like, I'm ready to put this kimchi in this pimento because we've been doing it for years all the time. Or I'm ready to show somebody how to eat. This is a whole fish. Eat the whole fish. Put the curry over it. And I commend, I always commend Talat Market in Atlanta for exposing me to a bit of that too, as far as eating the whole fish. And I had, every time I got fish before, it was always at least the head was cut off. But their curry fish was so good. It's like, I don't want to stop eating the fish. I don't care like that it was weird before. Every part of the fish tastes so good. I think that's like what builds that story. And we move with that intention. Well, we talk about that all the time. We always like promoting chefs who tell the story. We're always fascinated with chefs who have a story. And Talat too is one of the places that started off as a pop-up. As so many places in Atlanta started as a pop-up and like have this restaurant now and has this like Thai American. It's like, well, he would call it Americanized Thai because you know what I mean. But I think that's really
because he grew up. I mean, I don't know him personally, but he grew up as a Thai American, right? I mean,
right.
And I see actually some of the most interesting pop-ups I see are the ones least interesting to me, or the ones, again, there's always the food is great. Right. So you got to, that's necessary. You got to have good food. But then, it's the ones just like the Ganji example, or there's this another pop-up called Krupana. And he serves what he calls Adi. He serves what he calls Bosnian-ish food, Bosnian niche. So his parents are from Bosnia, but he grew up here, but he grew up eating hamburgers, but then he would also grew up eating Bosnian food, but then he kind of grew up like, oh mom, I don't want to have Bosnian again. I was like, I want to have
right.
We go to McDonald's. Why can't we just have pizza like all of my other friends that are not from Bosnia? And so he kind of like pushed that aside until it was like in his 30s when he started kind of reconnecting with his roots and with who he is, and reconnecting with his memories of hanging out with his grandmother. Right. And so it's, that's all coming from a place of, authenticity. Right. I mean, that's real. Right. And then like I said, if he wants to create a Bosnian, I forget the term, but Bosnian burger that has elements of Bosnian cuisine, then hell yeah, you can do that, right? That's not fusion, that's expression, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's one. You see that a lot of I guess first, second generation immigrants, they're embracing their identity of from from the original their home country, or sometimes they're mixed. One parent's from outside the U.S., another parent's from the U.S., and they're claiming that. And even I saw recently, I think it was CNN or NBC News, how TikTok has played such a huge role, especially for Asian Americans, to showcase or to show their cultural heritage and embrace and be proud of that, whether it's Bollywood style dancing or stinky tofu from China, like cho tofu, that kind of stuff. You hear these stories of 80s and 90s immigrant kids would take their weird, quote unquote, weird lunchbox that their mom made from their
school.
country, and they'd be like embarrassed at eating. It's like now people are like, no, look what I got. This is look at this tofu. This is awesome. And people, so it's giving a platform for those folks to take pride in who they are and where they come from. And so I think that's also really something really cool. And I think that's what a lot of these pop-ups are doing. It's like, yeah, this is who I am. This is how I grew up. This is a whole segment of society in the US that have these, didn't grow up like me, you know,
right.
plain old white guy in the American South eating casseroles made with canned cream of mushroom, cream of celery soup, and one dish put in the oven, bake for 30 minutes. And it was awesome. I love it. Yeah. I still love it. But, that's not what a lot of people, there are many people who do not have those kind of experiences that can be considered, at least when I was growing up, be those, that's what American is. There's so many other parts of America, and that's what seeing. And again, food is the window to see all of this happening and understand who we are as Americans. I mean, it's
I just have to take a quick pause. I have to grab my charger, so I'll be right back.
Okay.
I will be right back. Okay. Sure. Thank you so much.
Sure. So is this where we edit or no?
Yeah, around this. I want to keep it in to teach her a lesson. No, I'll edit it out. It's all here, Nisa. Yeah.
Okay. It was all the...
No, this is authentic, right? So
this is the real.
It's what I need is multiple charters.
Is that what it is?
It's really because it was like so distracting with the tree cutter, and I forgot to get my charger from where I've had it this day.
That's all good. We've all been there.
I'm always so worried about stuff like that. So I'm always like super conscious about my stuff being charged because, I guess different people have different things that they feel really bad about. For me, I'm like, you'll never see me be incompetent. And that's something I have to work on.
I mean, I've been a lot better about it, but today it was just kind of like weird because we were like, what are we going to do like with the machine out the window? And I usually like check those things, especially when I'm like recording, but we're back.
Yep. All good.
We're back.
All good.
So you were mentioning so what I connected with so much is like these kind of diverse backgrounds. And because I have a diverse background, I'm Jamaican, but I came here at a very young age. And I went back and forth to Jamaica throughout like elementary school until we stayed here permanently. And I had that like kind of double life, right? It was like at home is Jamaica, out there is white people. And it was just like, and I wanted to fit in out there. And it really took me until, I don't know, like college age to really be like, but wait a second. Like, it wasn't until I got older where I was like, how do you make oxtail? How do you make curry goat? Like, where do I get pigtails? And like, where do I find these things? And started to teach myself. And I remember my dad being like, who taught you how to do this? Because I know I didn't teach you how to do like, it was like, they weren't even like relinquishing the knowledge until I was ready for that. And I had to go and explore those things on my own and then bring back that knowledge to them and say, okay, this is my take on oxtail. And I always felt like, is this really authentic? Like, I was like, if I ever had like a dinner club or like a supper club where I did oxtail and somebody's Jamaican grandma like showed up, how would she feel? And she probably wouldn't be like, this just tastes like home. No, it would taste like someone's blended background because I tend to add like fresh and texture ingredients in my heavy stews because that's how I like it. And that's what came up for me when I was like exposing myself to more like
the food that I was getting exposed to, especially as I got older and got more into the food scene and started thinking about what kind of purposes everything on this plate serves. So I would always add raw ingredients on top. Like I would do like a bed of an arugula salad over my curry, or I would do like fresh tomatoes and onions over like oxtail to lift it. And I would always do that. And it's just little things like that where it's so easy to like kind of count yourself out and say, well, I'm not like 90 and born and raised and never left Kingston. It's like, no, but that perspective is still valid. And so many people
Absolutely.
have that blended perspective. And so for me as a foodie, for lack of a better word, it's like, I seek that out. Like when I see those various influences, whether it's because you have family from multiple backgrounds or whether it's because your experience took you there, I think that that's so refreshing when people are not afraid of doing that. And I don't like to call it fusion either, because fusion seems like such an understatement for what that is. But what it is just honesty.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is what I saw. This is what, it's like if 5 people saw a car accident, they would all tell you something different that happened. And I think the same thing is with food. Is like you pick 5 people that grew up in the same parish in Jamaica, and they will have a dramatically different opinion about what oxtail should be like. Yeah. And I think that is what authenticity is. It's not just this like singular definition of something. It's just honesty.
Yep.
And it's something that I think about so much. And that definition for me is always expanding. But where I'm at right now is that authenticity is expansion and it's honesty.
Yep. No, I totally agree. I totally agree. I mean, I think the word fusion to me, it means it's something it's out of context. Something that has like, hey, this flavor and this flavor might be interesting to put together, right? Or it will sound cool to bring these 2 different cuisines together. But it's more from a commercial standpoint, or just from a pure eye appeal or ear appeal or taste appeal, as opposed to being, it's like, I grew up, or just like, I don't know if this even is worthy of your example of the oxtail, but so 20 years in China, one thing I really learned to love is chili crisp, right? And so there's one brand called Lao Gan Ma that's very, very famous in China, and now more and more famous here. But when we do burgers now, they're Lao Gan Ma burgers, right? They're chili crisp burgers. I mix the chili crisp in there, right? And that's purely because, man, I just ate so much Chinese food with Lao Gan Ma, and then when I have the burgers, I just think that those 2 tastes should go together, right?
Yeah.
And it seemed natural to me to bring those together, and that's my little authentic expression. I'm not Chinese, but 20 years in China, it definitely had an influence on me, right? And so I think that's not fusion, right? That's expression. That's just who I am. That's who you are with oxtails. And I think it's also too interesting. You'll see certain pop-ups that will be explicitly branded as whatever culture / American.
Yeah.
So, Mighty Hans is Taiwanese American. Adobo is Filipino American. I mean, that's in their description, their words, right? And, Mike from Adobo came to our house and, did the whole Kamayan, before we had about 12 people over, spread out the banana leaves. And he said, okay, this dish and this dish, traditional Filipino. This dish with the collard greens, that's from the South. We kind of made that ourselves, right? I mean, that's not traditional Filipino, but he was very explicit about what he was trying to do as authentic or as true Filipino. Where Filipinos would come in, it's like, yeah, that's authentic. And others are like, no, we're not even trying to do that. This is just, I grew up in New Jersey. So this is how I eat Filipino food in New Jersey, right? And
so relax. Like that like American tag, it's not for you and me.
It's not for you and me.
It's for that one in the corner talking about, it's like, chill out. Chill out.
Not even.
What I'm getting from this too, we talk about fusion, and also the way you both are describing it, is like there's exoticism about the food. And that's why it's like, whoa, how crazy would it be if we put like oxtails with this pizza or whatever, or we put this with that? And it's like it's this other, it's not like a celebration of it. It's not like a meeting or celebration of the two. It's always this other thing. And
what goes to objectification, right? And you're kind of objectifying the culture. You're objectifying the authentic experience, that goes behind the food. It's just, you're doing it to please the crowd. And again, I'm not saying that I'm sure that they're really clever fusion food that come, and well-trained chefs that are very smart about bringing different flavors together. And that could be authentic for that chef, right? And so, I'm always hesitant to like say, "Oh, you're not authentic," And then that's just like the grandmother from Jamaica going, "Oh, that's not authentic," It's like, who am I? Who am I to say, what is authentic necessarily? But I think a lot of times it really does come from, it's coming from the heart. You're not trying to identify or develop a formula for success. It's like, I don't know. I'm not trying to be successful. I'm just trying to create good food, right? Yeah. Something that I like. I mean, I think that's kind of to me, that's the litmus test. It's like, it's not trying, you're not trying to create a formula for success.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's a lived experience.
Yeah, I think we kind of like put it all into one. But is there anything else you want to go off your chest? I feel like we all kind of already got through that already.
I told
organically.
Anything else you want to say to us,
Sam? No, I honestly, I think so much of what we're trying not to do defines what, we do. Right. And so, here at Punk Foodie. So I think that is, I think that that's really stuff that gets me going.
I love talking to people who are excited about food as we are and have like these deep philosophical, like they do think, sometimes people say it's like you're thinking too deeply about it, or it's not that serious. I'm like, it is. And sit down. Let me tell you why it's so serious. Here's my presentation. All right. First,
next slide.
Next slide. I got the proof. You got sources, and then it's not the sources aren't trust me, dude. I got sources I talked to. Let's talk about why this is so important.
Yeah. And the truth is, this kind of talk is not of interest to probably a lot of people, right? I mean, I have a great friend from college, how does he choose his food? When he's out driving around, go to Google Maps, type in restaurant, and sort by closest to me. Boom. And then it's like, what do I know? What is familiar or whatever? Yeah. And that's it. Because food is not. It presses buttons, right? It's for nutrition, or it's something you have to do to fuel your body, but he just doesn't get into that. It's just like some people listen to music. It's, they're listening to Muzak, and that's great, or it's the top 40 the hits, the hits or whatever. It's background music, as opposed to people who hang on to every single word of the lyrics and breaking down the song structure and trying to figure out how this artist or the singer or the singer-songwriter, is this real? Are they trying to be, is it just they're trying to be commercial to get on to get on TikTok, or that's not the radio, but to get on TikTok, and so but some people listen to music and say, it's just something that's in the background. Right. So,
don't give me stuff.
I'm like, I'm physically triggered by that.
Physically upset by
yeah.
Because
But I'm just saying, not everybody gives a shit like we do.
Yeah, I know.
And it's so true. It's so true.
They
Because
probably buy more food than people like us. So
I think
maybe that cheese bowl is the right thing to do to bring in customers. Who knows?
People who don't care about food. People who don't care about food don't know about food. Yeah. I firmly believe that because, first of all, it affects all of us. There's no opting out of it. There's no opting out of food at all, right? It's like music. It's like money. I think food is like money in that sense where you can pretend if you want to, you can put your head in the sand if you want to, but it's standing right outside that door. And I think people who act like they don't care, they do care and they're triggered. I had this conversation with a coworker of mine, one that I didn't particularly enjoy their company. And we were all out for lunch and, we wwere at Bar Taco, right? It was easy, accessible, all those things. And he was so upset by the $4 tea. And I was like, well, do you know where the tea is coming from? Do you understand that restaurants have overhead costs? Do you understand that profit margins are usually less than 5%, even for restaurants that do really well? And they're like, well, this is a huge chain, so I'm sure they're doing really well. I was like, just because you have 1,000 locations doesn't mean that you're profitable. It doesn't mean that finances are doing good. And it doesn't mean that they should charge $2 less for a tea. The tea comes out, turns out there's unlimited refills.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, so all this stuff came up of and this is a guy who spends the majority of their youthful wealth on their car, right? And so I was like, you just don't value this. That's what it is. You don't value it because if you understood what went into this entire operation, whether it's corporate or not, then you would understand where these prices are coming from. First of all, Bar Taco is one of the most affordable places you could eat. That's at scale. So it's if any, I don't even honestly don't know how they do that, and make it work. So it's we're in 2020. It was 2021 or 2022. I was like, 2021, this is where prices are at now. This is where we're at. Also, I know you can afford it. Stop being cheap. Don't be an asshole to the people who are serving us. Don't give them a hard time. Have respect and have respect for the long journey that it took. We went over war for tea. Have respect. Don't you remember? And I went on this whole rant and everyone at the table was mind you, I was in tech. So it was just a bunch of 20-something guys that were making more money than they really thought they would make by that age. And they were just sitting there and I don't even know what they were thinking other than wow, this escalated quickly. And I was just got such passion because I was just how dare you? Even for a restaurant like that, it's people, I feel once they know and understand, whether from experience, whether because they're friends or whatever, however you get that information, then you will care. It's so hard not to care once you know what goes on into it. But if you say that you don't care, what you are is frustrated by the fact that the presence of the issue is there and you don't understand why it's so important. Yeah. But it's one of those things. It's not like having plants inside your home. It's one of those things you cannot opt out of. So to not care, and this is my controversial opinion, but to not care is really just burying your head in the sand because there's no opting out of food and the food economy and the cycle of food. It's that or death. So you should care.
Yeah. No, for sure. And just making it a little bit less serious, but this is why Yelp kind of sucks. It's because you have people saying, oh, $4 tea, 1 star.
Right.
Or you've got the professional influencers who got paid or didn't get paid and then put a negative review, or they're just focusing on the cheese pull. Or saying stuff, or someone says, "Oh, well, they made me wear a mask," and say, "Okay, 1 star." It's like, come on, this is, you're not even, it's not even touching on the most relevant aspects of the experience, and also with the lack of understanding, right? And what you're talking about, I mean, just the lack of understanding how the business works, lack of understanding where the food comes from, everything, or what makes for good food. And so I think that's why the Yelp sucks, or the reviews around food can really be not helpful. Any site that aggregates reviews around food, or hotels or whatever, you got to kind of find, it's like, okay, are these the people that if I had a conversation with them, that I would value their opinion? Maybe not. No. And again, they could be like my friend Tom. He just wants to get food in his belly so he can get on to the rest of his day. So but that's saying that there's just that certain population that is, and that's fine. That's what they do. But yeah, I think it makes for Yelp to be kind of sucky. And then also I think it is sort of irresponsible to not understand how food fits into a broader context. You don't have to be into authentic food and all this highfalutin ideas, some of the stuff that we're talking about, but at least be respectful of the context, be respectful of the business, be respectful of the people that got the food onto your plates, starting from the server all the way down to the farmer in South Georgia, or wherever it comes from.
100%.
Yeah.
Jabari, is it time?
I think it's time, Nisa.
This is the part I'm most nervous about.
Everybody gets serious.
The only one who knows what we're doing. Like every time we do it, they're like, "Time for what?" I was like, "We talked about this."
It's like, is my ex coming? Everybody's like freaks out.
I should just do that to random people. Like I should just be like, "Is it time?" And just see what comes up for them.
You just be talking, make conversation, to stop and be like, "Is it time?" It's time for Bops, Bangers, or Bust.
So Bops is in the middle. Bangers is awesome. Bust is bad, right?
Not it.
Yes, you nailed it.
That's gonna be the most difficult thing to remember. Gotta just go thumbs up, thumbs down.
We tried doing Bangers, Bops, and Busts, and as you can hear, it just doesn't have the same je ne sais quoi. It just doesn't.
No, it's all good. Just my memory is bad.
You got it right immediately. You got it right. I can top it off if you want me to.
Yes.
Boss, Bangers, or Bust. Hamburgers.
Oh, bangers. Love burgers. Is that it, or did I give to expound upon that?
It's supposed to be rapid fire, but it never ends up being rapid fire.
Burgers are a canvas to express creativity, right? Just like tacos, right? Or even hot dogs. So, you can have what I was trying to create with the chili crisp, it's a Szechuan burger, right? Because that's Szechuan sauce, right? And there's so many different types of burgers, or you can bring in your, whether it's a Korean burger or, little different pop-ups will have their style burgers, like Jackalope, who's Thai. It does kind of Thai, again, fusion, but he does rendang burger, which is amazing, kind of some Malaysian curry sauce. So yeah, I love, and I just love plain cheeseburger too. But I just think it's,
damn, that was a good one, Jabari. Now I want a burger.
I had a burger yesterday. It was really good. I haven't had a burger in a while.
Just rub it in, why don't you? Rub it in.
You can get you one. Go get your burger, Lisa.
I deserve a burger. We're getting a burger.
Going out today, go get a burger.
Great. Bob's Bangers or Bust. This is a weird one.
Okay.
but AI tools, particularly the AI tools that are like coming into our lives more and more right now in our day-to-day workflow, Bob's bangers or bust.
Banger bust. Banger and bust.
Yeah.
No, banger in that I do think it can free up, it can augment the creative process. It has potential to augment the creative process, so you don't have to get stuck into the weeds. And humans can focus on what humans are really good at, and taking data, taking information, taking perspective, and ideating and creating, innovating on top of that. Stuff that AI, at least for now, is not as good at. The bust part of it is, actually, I'm not worried about, I'm more worried about just like this becoming the world becoming the Matrix, or fake news and fake content, where it looks like someone deep fakes and all that kind of stuff, about how we consume information and validating the truth or authenticity about that information. So I think there's some much more in-depth kind of existential concerns that I have. But in terms of just like my everyday work, you can, it's amazing stuff. You can type in, you go to Mid-Journey, you can type in, it's like create a poster in the style of psychedelic concert posters in the 1960s. And put in the keywords that go in the poster, and boom, you've got something. It's like, whoa, that is amazing.
That is amazing.
Right? But that's a starting point, right? It's not the end point. And so that kind of stuff, I think, is interesting. And I don't see it as I guess it's a threat to some jobs.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's gonna help humans do what humans do best. Get there faster. Sorry, this is not rapid fire. I'm failing on that aspect of it. Bust on that aspect of rapid fire, but
in the same way, I'm not worried about them taking over. I think that comes from, that's a human fear that someone else is going to come take over. That's a little different, and media has a lot to do with that. To me, it's more concerned with the, like you were saying, things being presented as real when they are not.
Yeah.
And it's as far as I saw someone talking about people worrying about, Drake and Kendrick have this what's it called? These songs about them as fake songs, and people are upset about that. It's like, what about when somebody uses an AI voice to tell my kids to come to the door and to take my kids, or something like that, or to do voice verification on a scan from my bank account, or to call my grandmother and tell her to send me so and so. Those things are much more.
Yeah, it's more existential stuff that frightens the hell out of me. Right. I mean, really, really does.
Misuse of this stuff by other humans. That's what I'm really worried about. Is the
way that I look at that, though, is that with it's new levels, new devils, right? It's like with any expansion in our world in terms of what we're capable of, it comes with a new level of responsibility in order to operate ethically, safely, all of those things. Before we had cars, there weren't any seatbelts, there weren't any mirrors, there weren't any laws about driving, and we had to create those things. And then there's an argument to be made about the environmental impact, and now we have to answer those questions. So I think as soon as we have this new level of access to our world or to enhance our experience, we also then always have to come back to how do we make it safer and how do we make it more ethical. It's never without that. And I think it is a worthy price to pay to have more ease in our lives. But, and this is always the case, even before we had very much technology. It's the case is politically, are we going to do that? Are we going to decide to approach it with safety and with the mindset of doing it the right thing and making sure that people are protected while they're exploring these new ideas? And I think that's just what it comes down to. Like now we have seatbelts, now we have electric cars, now we're thinking about ways to reuse materials. Now we're thinking about, well, we ought to be thinking about ways to be safer on the road. And it's like the same thing has to happen with AI, but I love the support and the efficiency in my day-to-day. And that's what we just have to be more aware of. It's like, okay, well, that's going to be the next round of things that we're going to be voting on soon enough. Yeah. Is privacy and safety from a digital perspective.
Yeah, I guess my concern is, making laws or understanding the negative impact of, say, cars on the streets that's pretty tangible, right? Do we even know what AI is capable of, or can it be controlled, or can the people who are behind creating, or the companies behind that, do they even know what this is capable of, or know how it can be controlled? So I think it's that kind of controllable aspect that I just can't quite wrap my head around, and understanding how much it can be. To what extent, what is the potential or the extent of this capability to do evil things, or things we don't, unintended consequences. I just don't think we fully understand the unintended consequences. I don't think anyone does.
Yeah. It's so notes, kind of very reactionary. So
I don't want to be a Luddite, and like 50 years from now, these kind of comments being said, these guys, I didn't know. It's like, look at now, it's so awesome, but just like cars, it's like, I prefer faster or worse, and that looks silly now, but still, I can't help it.
Yeah,
it's like I'm kind of scared.
That's real.
That's real. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, these things can happen. I guess we'll just see. Everyone just keep their eyes open and being more informed. Like we were talking about earlier about being the more informed, like conscientious, like citizen. You know what I mean? Like that's really what we see, that we can't leave it up to the hands of people who are in charge to be in charge. Like we still have to show
you always
up.
have to be accountable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We can do a whole episode about AI. So
Ginger Karen's take on AI.
Okay. I'm had a good one. Bob Spangers or bust. I had one. I lost it. Okay, yeah. Bob Spangers or bust, science fiction.
Oh. Wow. I don't, doesn't speak to me. I mean, I watched Star Trek growing up, never big Star Wars. I can't say it's bust, because I recognize this, there's great storytelling, and I admire it as a genre, but just doesn't speak to me. So if you start talking Star Wars, movies or episodes or any of the TV shows with me, or Star Trek, or next topic.
There needs to be like a community of people like us, because I'm in the same boat and I never say it publicly, because
it's called the world.
People get so triggered, and I'm just like, what do you want me to say?
It's called the world. You have a community of people who don't mind more. It's called popular culture.
Yeah. It's just fine. It's like, I just have nothing to say about it.
You can find people in the Star Wars fandom who are like, I hate Star Wars. It's very divisive. Okay.
Yeah.
Bob's fingers are a bust. Snow.
That's, for me, growing up in the South, definitely a bust. I don't. And I lived in Japan for a couple of years, northern Japan. Just feet upon feet of snow on the road, piled up on this. They snowplow be literally like 20 feet of snow on either side of the road, and be there all winter. Cold in general, snow in particular, not for me. Just
not the vibe. Not the vibe.
So much you got to get all wrapped up and wearing a bunch of clothes, and it's just uncomfortable. No, it's not for me.
We're here. We're right here.
Yeah.
So real.
Yeah.
So real.
I mean, I'd rather be. I mean, the heat, humidity that you have in Atlanta and everything, that's pretty bad. But again, I grew up with it. And we have air conditioning, so
one thing, Atlanta loves their air conditioning. I made that mistake out here in LA, and it was like really, really hot. And I was like, "It's cool. I'm sweating now, but once I get inside, I'll cool down." No, the air conditioning was not blasting.
Not a big.
I was like, "Wait a minute, what happened?"
No, yeah,
we do not do that out here.
No, and I learned that when I went to Asia, especially mainly in China, when I got there in the mid 90s, there was not a lot of central air or not a lot of air conditioning, period. You would seek out the malls and stuff in the summer where there was air conditioning. And then there's also this whole thing that air conditioning is in China that's like bad for the health. It's not clean air. And so my wife is Chinese, and when we're living together in China, her mom, my mother-in-law, lived with us, and so we'd always have this thing. It's like I wanted the air conditioning on all the time. We can control it room by room, the apartment we had, and so I'd have it in wherever I was. The air conditioner was super low, super cold, and I would get up and walk out of the room, and she would like immediately jump up, go and turn it off right behind me.
Oh my God.
And I would go into the room where it was off and I'd turn it on. And so it's just, it's just the idea that there's that air conditioning is everywhere, and that it's actually desired to the degree that it's desired here is definitely, it's not universal.
I apologize to all those people who experienced my funk that day. Should have planned a little bit better.
I'll be all right. It's worth
Sorry to that man.
Okay. Boss fingers or bus. My brain's just blanking as soon as I get on here. That's why I write them down, basically, because I can't. The camera's on. Boss fingers or bus. Swimming.
Bob. It's you got to put on special clothes.
This is a theme. This is a reoccurring theme.
Yeah. Whatever, you have to change.
Oh, so much fun. What do you mean?
Yeah, I like to wear one outfit per day.
That's real.
And and it's also the changing aspect. You're uncomfortable, and then have to go change into something else, and then you go swimming, and you get out, and you got to change again. And then also for me, I have to wear I wear glasses, and my eyesight's pretty bad, so I can never see in the. And so then you can wear I have prescription goggles, but then for me to be just hanging out of the hotel pool bar or whatever, I got to wear the goggles and drink the beer because I can't see, right? Or swim over with holding up my glasses, when I'm swimming over the bar. So it's just the whole eyesight thing was a thing for me, and it's okay. I mean, it has its moments. When my son was younger and we go swimming, that was fun. But I don't necessarily seek it out. Sitting by the pool, that's all right.
I was that way very much recently when I officially learned how to swim. Shout out to Nisa for helping me learn how to swim. And now I just do it now. We also live in an apartment complex where I can walk 30 seconds and I can get to the pool. So the whole change aspect doesn't really that much affect me, but now I'm getting much more comfortable in the water. Right. And I just found this whole basically a spiritual awakening. It's just I was always terrified of bodies of water, and kind of getting to the place in my life where I'm revisiting, confronting things that I'm terrified by. So I just don't be limited by, because I might, if I try it out and I don't like it, I can just check it off the list. I don't like it and stuff. But I don't want to be holding myself back by I'm not saying this is what you're doing, but I'm gonna be held by something I'm like curious about, but I'm just like, I'm scared. It's like I'm ready to not live my life like that. So
yeah, no, that makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, I'm generally held back by anything where I have to change clothes. So I'm not scared. I just lazy.
Like, I don't like shoe shopping because you got to try on the shoes. You got to take your shoes off, then you have to put the little sock on, and then you have to try on the other shoes, and then I don't like it, then I have to put my shoes back on.
And don't even start about the pants, because then you got to like take off the shoes to change the long pants. Right, shorts, no problem, but the pants, man, you got to take off the shoes. Then you got to take off the pants.
It's so funny because now that you say that is how I feel. Like every time I go shopping, I wear like something really teeny tiny and slender so that I can just put stuff over it instead of having to like remove clothes. And that's like, I was like, you know what? This is why I love this game, because you just don't even realize like how much thought you put into these little things until you're like explicitly asked about it.
No, totally. And now there are these sneakers, tennis shoes out that the heel is not very. It's very flexible. Like the top of the heel, like if you don't unlace your shoes and try to put your foot in there, right? Normally, you end up the back of the heel of the shoe. It always gets pushed down because you're like, I'm too lazy to unlace the shoes, or even like reach down to unhook move the back, the top of the heel where I'm like pushing down on. But now they've got these heels where the back will actually fold down and fold up. It pops up. Very flexible.
Now that's the future. That's what I'm talking about.
That's technology. That's technology.
Screw AI, man. It's the tennis shoes where this
give me some of that
innovation.
That just reveals our age right there when it's like, you know what? I hate having to untie my sneakers.
It's too much, man. Every time I put my shoes on, I gotta like stop and take. That's too much.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot. Bob's fingers are bust.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to think of like a really good one because I was like, we got a few Bob's. Bob's fingers are bust. Spicy food.
Oh, that's a banger. Yeah, no, live and die by the spice. I love it. No, I mean, especially I again, growing up in Alabama in the 70s and 80s, and there was not much spice. It was Mexican food sometimes. Get the spicy salsa. Old El Paso spicy salsa. I was like, that was that's a living. But then, when I moved to China and Hunan food and Sichuan food, and then of course like Thai, just loving that. I mean, it's I definitely seek out the spice, not spice just like. It's going to be painful or anything. Just spice just for the sake of spice. I just think it just adds that kick. It's just exciting. And so there's like different types of spice. Like in Chinese, you also got this mala, which is kind of like a numbing spice. So it's spicy, but it also kind of numbs your tongue. And so that's like a whole nother sensation with spice. And this is great. Oh
my God.
Yeah, it's definitely the spice. Right.
We had some spicy fries out here for the first time at the restaurant called Deadly Market. It's like, how have I never had spicy fries before? I'm like,
no, that's
like, they literally put chili flake on it. I'm just like, why is this the first time I'm having this?
Yeah, no, I don't think I've had the spicy fries. I mean, just like spicy fries. I've had fries that are spicy, like, whatever. Grindhouse, like Dirty South fries, they have jalapenos. It's got a little kick to it, but it's not like that's a whole like chili and cheese and scallions and all kinds of and jalapenos, but pure spicy, just from the just from the flavoring. No, that's cool to check that out.
It's a vibe. It's definitely a vibe.
This is perfect. I'll just eat 2 of these, please. I don't want anything else. Just get
It's like, I'm not sharing today, so let's get 2.
That's real. That's a secret to a long relationship. You know when you want to share or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I grew up with a lot of siblings, so I'm always like, I just get a bite, right? Like I just gonna try something else, right? Like
Yeah, no, totally.
Don't try.
Don't assume you'll get a bite.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So Sam, where can the people find you?
So probably the best place to go would be punkfoodie.com, all one word. Is that takes you obviously to my website. And from there you get a link to my Instagram account, also to the newsletter. And the Instagram account newsletter is where I will put up like weekly guides to kind of the coolest pop-ups we see happening. But within there, you can also find, we have an online calendar where you can see all the pop-ups, see what's happening, like everything happening today in Atlanta, ITP, Inside the Perimeter, and OTP. But also if you go to the website, when we launch our app, which is coming the end of this month.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's help you more efficiently and effectively find pop-ups. And everything we're doing the Instagram account, on the newsletter, and an online calendar, it's all coming together. And yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. So yeah, or if you subscribe to, follow me on Instagram, follow us on Instagram, subscribe to the newsletter. Of course, we'll be talking about the app there when it's ready. But yeah, go to the website and follow us on Insta, subscribe to the newsletter. Yeah, that's where we're kind of announcing everything that we're doing.
I just want to say that when the app gets really big, you heard it here first.
Yeah.
And when the app gets sold, and everyone's accusing you of being a sellout, just know that I will never accuse you of being a sellout. I'm always like, yes.
Yeah, no, we're we'll see how it goes. That's one step at a time. Got to get the app launched first. Sometimes I'm not even sure that's going to happen. Some days I'm talking to my developers, and but we're getting there step by step. And it's going to be, we're really, really excited about that. So.
Yay, that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sam, for joining us today on the Sensitive Business Podcast. And we'll see y'all in the next episode.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And it was, it's great talking to y'all. Lots of fun. Lots of fun. Very authentic experience.
Yes. That's our key word.
Yeah. All right.
I want to thank you, first and foremost, for listening to the entire podcast. You're a real one. I want to know more people like you because I really, really fuck with you. We should be friends. Let's start this friendship off by you rating and sharing this podcast with at least one of your friends. That way you can brag about knowing us from the beginning. Isn't that what you really want? Bragging rights? Make sure to tell your friends that they can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. And if you're not on there, then I don't know what to tell you.